and Christina,
Hi.
and we are here today to talk about what is the advice you would give to your young self.
Yes. And there is, there's so much for me personally that I wish I would have known back then. And you know how our moms always say, like, listen to me, I want to prevent you from making the same mistakes. And yeah. Well, then we become moms and now we totally understand. And I don't know about you. I actually went back to my mom and said, I'm so sorry. I didn't listen to you. I wish I would have listened to you.
Yeah.
So
I actually, a few years ago, I was like, my kids were teenagers and they're like, not really being the most, happy kids around me. And I was like feeling sorry. I was like, oh, I miss the love from the kids.
when they were younger.
Yeah. And then I said, you know what? They're going to grow. I'm going to go and love my parents. So I actually went to Brazil to love my parents.
Were you loving towards your parents when you were young?
Yes.
I mean, looking back.
Yes. There was always love there, but it's not the kind of love that we understand today, right?
Okay.
Just be with them.
Yeah, the importance of family. I think that's also for me too. Is that for the majority of our adolescent years, my mom raised us as a single mom, and so we were all three, and I have three brothers, two brothers and a half brother, but we were all very close. But there was, I didn't show the affection that I know to do today, and I'm blessed. I have very affectionate daughters. They're always, I love you. I mean, we never have a conversation without ending, I love you. It's just, So go ahead. Tell me, first of all, I want you to touch what you mentioned about your children, because you were born and raised in Brazil, yeah?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Brazil. I came to U.S. when I was 24.
Okay.
And then I got married and I had the kids at 29. Like my first son, I was at 29. I was married to a Persian guy who, his mom is around here. So the Persian culture was there. It's strong. My Brazilian culture was strong. And we're living in America. So there's like a combination of three cultures living together. There's a difference of I was raised with my both parents married. There's two married today. He was raised with separated, divorced parents at one point. And then my kids are, was raised with divorced parents as well. So there's all that mixed. When I look back and, look what advice I would give it to my young self.
Okay, you mean your young self as far as when it comes to the marriage? Is this what we're going to touch on right now?
No, in general.
Oh, okay.
In general.
Okay.
Because how was it for you to grow up?
So prior to marriage and just, that's a loaded question. We're going to have to kind of narrow that down a little bit. But what I was asking was, you said your young self, because you were on the topic of when you came to America, and it was just a matter of a few years, right? You got married and you had your children.
Yes.
Would you still, and did you come out here by yourself?
I did.
Really?
I did.
24 years old. You had no family out here?
No, I had a girlfriend that was living here.
Wow.
I had a brother that was living in Miami. And, preparing for the episode, I was thinking, it's very difficult to, what would I say to my young self? Because the consciousness that I had there is not the consciousness that I have today. So, and maybe that's the parenting thing.
That was very insightful what you just said. It's so true. Right?
Would I have heard?
Yeah. Would it have been in vain? Because we're focused on a different aspect of our life. And maybe that's why sometimes we reject our parents' advice, because we're thinking, you're old. It's different now.
You don't understand.
Do your kids say that to you, Mom? It's different. We got this.
Yes.
It's a whole different, that's quite common.
You don't understand.
Yeah.
So the consciousness, I would say, if I would have any advice, is to study more. Because I do think when I came to US, when I was 24, I had no idea what was, ahead of me. But the diversity, the the challenge of adapt. I didn't speak any word in English. I knew a little bit of English, but I couldn't speak. So that was like so much development, growth and development of like learning English, adapting, learning all the culture, you know.
I actually.
And then I got married. I'm sorry.
No,
And then I got married with like someone with a totally different culture, different religion, you know. So
isn't that interesting how things work out sometimes? Well, I would applaud you at a young age, leaving Brazil, coming to the United States, having a girlfriend. So that, I mean, independence, you displayed independence and it worked out great for you. I was the complete opposite. I was so family oriented and homebound. Like I was, and I don't know where that came from. And that's one thing I would advise myself is take advantage of your youth. And, I have my oldest daughter. She's just doing everything right in the sense of traveling everywhere. She, right after school, she went and lived in Australia for like 6 months.
Good for
Became
her.
an au pair, got to experience that. Then she went and lived in Hawaii. Then she went to school and opened her own business before she was even like 23, 24. But she travels so much. So rather than sticking money away for like to be able to buy her own home, she used her hard-earned money, cash, and traveled the world, something I never did. And she, because once you start a family, right, it's like you don't have the opportunity to do that. So that's something good. And so you kind of did that.
I did.
You just happened to get married or meet somebody and started your family right away.
And it's interesting because I didn't come to US to get married or to stay. I just want to travel, and I have an adventure spirit. So you tell me, let's do something. I'm a yes.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. As an entrepreneur, I have to.
Yeah.
So the I was reading some material that people would say like take risk or don't be afraid to fail, and like I didn't have that. I think that the only thing that I would have done differently, that even up today I have to let go because it doesn't help to keep thinking about it, is the medical school that I gave up. That was like the only thing that even today I wish I had the consciousness and I had the unstoppability, in me.
Yeah. So, what do you think your fears were? Because I know that that's a lot of people don't pursue their passion, like especially right out of high school. Some people can't even identify what their passion is at that time. I think some people have to experience life a little bit before they dedicate 4 years to a university. But what, for you in particular, what was
in Brazil, there was a different system to get into medical school, and it was very competitive, and I tried to study, and I didn't have the discipline to study, so I had it that I was not capable.
So you
that little voice over there, like it was like underneath was like I didn't believe I was capable of doing that, and there are people who have done so many different ways that they became doctors.
Fear of failing is huge. I think for me too, that excuse me, that actually stopped me from chasing some of my dreams. I had aspired to be also, going into the medical field, and it's never too late. So we want to make sure that we emphasize that. It doesn't matter your age, but things are a little bit different, as you get older. But I also wanted to get into the entertainment industry. I actually went out on several auditions and modeling. My mom was very supportive of all that, but she instilled this fear of me of rejection. And she didn't want to see me be rejected. So that, her fear kind of carried over to me, and I became like, she saw me as sensitive. And she wanted to kind of protect me from that. And I think a lot of parents do that. We don't want to,
project.
yeah, we do. We project that on them when we are kind of like, because we can't handle it for them. So, and I think that kind of carried over. So I kind of changed directions, and I found my way eventually where I needed to be. I found my way, and I had to travel many paths before I got there. But one thing, so for medical school, it's something that, had you thought back then, maybe find different ways, different creative ways. If you didn't, could you have gotten somebody to kind of where you could shadow or learn from them, or they could kind of mentor you, so you can overcome those obstacles that you kind of, created for yourself.
I think that overcome the obstacles would be like being unstoppable. Yeah. And I was unstoppable for that.
But you are now. Actually, you are that person.
Today I'm unstoppable. And I think that the passion for the health and like the lymphatic, because I became a specialist in lymphatic lymphedema and lipedema, like those diseases, and I'm passionate about it. Like, I love when those clients have complicated cases, like they come to me because I want to help them. And I did chiropractor. I started chiropractor school a few years ago, but it's a whole different ball game, But how about you? Like, did you have something that like was major? Like for me, like
so there's a couple of things. So, and being a mother of 3 daughters, because I have some regrets or things that I wish I could advise my younger self. And my mom and I had a great communication, but there was a slight separation into where I think there were chapters in my life as a young woman where I was almost a mother. And so, I always consider the source of where the advice comes from. And it's important that we do that, right? Because advice is often given to us based on that person's personal experience, right? So we always have to discern. And so I try to share with my daughters things, try to plant the seeds, try to find creative ways of communicating things that I could take from my past and bring it forward without it just being, without boring them. And so, excuse me guys while I just adjust this real quick. But one thing I wish I could go back and tell myself is that don't be afraid. I just assumed like everybody could see right through me. Like I was just this transparent being. And if I made a mistake, it was going to be visible to everybody. Or if I didn't know how to get up in front of a classroom and give a presentation, to perfection, or it was just, people were going to judge me or find fault in me. And that insecurities, although back then I didn't know where it stemmed from, I can see it now, and it was just the fear of the unknown. And not really realizing back then that we are all in the same boat. Everybody has the same kind of fears. And if you can actually start just let's take for example a classroom. If I just said to somebody like, I'm gonna mess up and it's gonna be okay, and if you mess up, it's gonna be okay. We are all nervous right now. We all have butterflies. We all skipped breakfast. Let's just, if I could have been that person to kind of just calm the waters and say, yeah, that's right. It could have been contagious. It could have kind of, so, I think I would go back and say, hey, we're all afraid. We all are like, traveling down the same path. We're all brothers and sisters. I think that I would have probably went after a lot more. Because right now I'm not afraid of anything. If I fall flat on my face, I don't care. If I'm walking up a stage and I trip over my dress, I don't care. I'll make a funny joke about it. Yeah. So that's one.
Yeah. That would have been very different if we could have this kind of consciousness when we were growing up, right? I like what you talk about it, like being appropriate to talk to your children, because recently I was like trying to convey something with my son, and my brother was saying like, you have to take in consideration that he's living in a third culture, and you grow up in a different culture. His father was from the another culture, and and there's an era that he is that is not, not the
His
same
generation.
I mean, I grew up, I didn't have cell phone.
Yeah.
We would stay on the phone waiting,
Yeah.
and then here it's like they don't know what life is without cell phone. Just those little things, right? And then so being appropriate to speaking to other generations, I think that is
learning to speak their language. And that's going to be very unique to the individual, because when you are a person, when you want to get a point across or you want to plant a seed, the more creative you can be in presenting it in a way that they're going to comprehend it and absorb it. So studying behavior and kind of learning to speak their language. And it may not be reciprocated, like to where they hear you, or you may not see any difference, but you planted the seed. And in time, that will kind of blossom and kind of, they'll revisit that. I think also I see a huge mistake is that parents tend to just, because they're in a world of computers and cell phones, they just think all the information is out there. So they stop parenting as far as having those intellectual, intimate conversations. And because they get a lot of pushback, like, no, Mom, this is what,
I want to bring it up. So as we're discussing this, I think the key as we talk to bring something in, because we want to make a difference in our children's life, is to find where they are, right? And look, it's not that is easy, right? But where they are, which level of consciousness they are, because I do exercise this with clients. I do exercise that with people I work with. And maybe I need to exercise more in my children's life to like the advice, because the advice we're giving to ourselves, the youngest self, is the advice we want to give it to others.
Right. And be mindful that our children are going to extend a better listening ear to others than they will to you as a parent. And their attention span is about 10, 20 minutes.
But they will listen.
Well, they will listen, but it's also how you present it.
Yes. And
that's why I'm saying you got to get to their level. And I don't mean like become their friend, because I never want to be but presenting it in a way to where, and you're not a broken record. When it's appropriate, you've got to seize the opportunity when the opportunity presents itself and say, listen, I think you're, and always give them praise first. And this is, and another thing too that tends, I turn my kids off a lot is when I say, well, when I was young, you started off like that, you've already closed their minds to it, and just, so that's a constant, I think we have to just constantly evolve as good conversationalists when it comes to our children.
I have hopes, because what I remember growing up is that especially both my parents, they would say things to me that I was like but then that had so much impacted on me, especially when I was here on my own I moved to US, that I was dealing with some challenges. They, even though they were not there and they think that I didn't hear them at that time, it was there. So it was there. So every time I say something and they're not getting, I was like, and I want to be an example too. So I do a lot of things, not just say it. And with the hopes that they're getting mature and one day it will click for them.
And what you just touched on, sometimes the best teacher is by setting an example, just allowing them to witness you and your actions. And that's why it is so important to be a good role model, because they may never even let you know that they understand you. They're just not going to give you that validation because they think that we're always
it's going to be there.
But it's like I get tickled inside when I see, like, my youngest daughter, who's a mother. She'll respond to an action of one of her children, or just a situation perhaps with her husband, or just in her day-to-day. And it was something like, we had a conversation just weeks ago, and I just thought it went in one ear and out the other, but she put it into action. She absorbed that information without acknowledging it, verbally to me. And it was good. So they're always watching and paying attention too. So let's go back to talk about some of the things that we would tell our younger selves. And what we hope to achieve with this is that, if you're, if we're talking to the 25-year-olds, if we could just maybe touch on any one thing that maybe you're experiencing currently, and then you'll say, okay, yeah, so these women, they said something and I'm going through that. How we can convey to them to, just kind of reframe, their mentality as far as how their perspective on something. One of the things for me too was that when I was younger, because I grew up in a broken household. Is that the right word, broken? No, I mean, divorce. I was 7, 8, I think, when my parents divorced.
Yeah, let's take that broken out. It's just, where was it, right?
Because my mom was a fantastic mom. I mean, she did, but we had to move a lot.
Let's create a different relationship, right? A different situation.
Yeah. We had to move a lot, so we were going to different schools. We were renting. My mom couldn't afford to buy a home. I think we had, and this kind of was the way all the way through high school. So because I didn't have control over my young environment, as growing up, now I'm moving along into high school, college, and shortly thereafter, I had to really control my environment. And I think I even took that into my early marriage, the years of my because I didn't want somebody taking the carpet from underneath me. And I missed out on so much. I sabotaged so much because of this need to control. And that would be like, the house had to be perfect. It had to be clean, and nobody would, that's because I had control over that.
And how about you? Do you have to be perfect yourself as well?
No, I've embraced letting things, dishes.
I'm talking about before, like when you were in that time that you had to be in control. Did you look at yourself and you had to control and be perfect yourself?
No, I didn't know where it stemmed from. I wasn't analytical
you're not.
I wasn't aware. I just knew that if my parents, now I'm moving to when my mom remarried, but if they were out of town, most people, especially seniors in high school or college, I'm having a party at the house, No. Oh my God, they're leaving. I can clean my home and my carpets will be vacuumed and fresh and nobody's going to disturb it. That's who I became. So if I could go back in time, I would say to my young self, like, you don't have to control everything. You don't, it's ultimately, it's going to hurt you. It's going to be a habit that you're going to have to overcome, because it's going to prevent you from really enjoying life. And everything had to be so structured for me. I was writing in a calendar. I would prepare for a test in high school. I would prepare for a test by recording my voice, all the answers, and listening to it. I would put my close out for 2 weeks in advance on hangers and put, this is Monday, Tuesday, so that I became a victim to this structure. And I think it took the adventure out of me. I wasn't like that free spirit. And so balance, I didn't know balance was so important back then. So that's another thing, but I want to hear one from you.
I just have a question for you. Okay, before I talk about me.
Okay.
What would you tell to your young self to continue doing that you stopped doing it? That was really good and you stopped because you grew up.
Okay. So something I would actually go back in time and pat myself and say, good job, but I gave it up. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Wow, that was, I think that I was a tomboy because I had nothing but brothers. And so I did everything, especially my older brother. I just followed him around fishing. I got, and at some point I moved, we would hike and camp. I wasn't afraid of camping just in a tent or sleeping in a sleeping bag, but I gave all that up. I started embracing the woman in me and just felt like, I didn't want to let my hair down anymore. I really applaud women who can do both. They're very well-rounded. They embrace that masculine side of themselves, and they clean up very well, and they're very, I love that. I think somewhere I lost that sense of like, no, it's okay to not present myself, and just enjoy those things. And I really did enjoy them. So, but my daughters are that way. So it's a give and take. That's just one aspect.
That's pretty cool. I it's challenge to think of, but I think I heard an actress in Brazil talking about empowering her daughter to look at the mirror and say, "You're pretty, you're awesome, you're amazing," like the affirmations. I think that was something that I didn't have, growing up, I had asthma, overweight, like there was so many little things that on a daily basis was like taking my self-esteem and self-confidence away.
Yeah.
I would, be, I don't know if I can't even say that there's anyone to blame, but that was missing,
Yeah.
that was missing. Like I think that today, the power that we have today, the knowledge and consciousness that we have today, and empowering the girls and look in the mirror, even the boys, like look in the mirror and say, "You're pretty, you have a pimple, no problem. You're overweight, no problem. You're pretty and you're confident, you're amazing." Like the whole self-confidence, self-esteem,
it's
loving yourself.
And that is, that's something so common in younger kids, because they lack the life experience. So they give in to their insecurities or the fear of the unknown. That's another thing too. I think that if I could go back in time, I would say, I used to be afraid, and if any of you guys can relate to this, I used to be afraid if something, let's just say I had a credit card charge that didn't look like it was mine. I was afraid to pick up the phone and make the phone call to handle it. And I don't know if it was a fear of a rejection or a fear of not knowing how to articulate myself, but nowadays I don't, and some men, like, you notice how men, like if they get lost, they don't pull over to get directions. It's like they, forget that. Just nip it in the bud, whatever it is. Don't be afraid. For you younger listeners, like whatever your fear is, conquer it. Go after it. The person on the other line is a human being just like you. Oh, another thing too. Don't be afraid to ask for those discounts, or to ask about, in the case of like your utilities, or in the case of like you got an overdraft charge or something. I remember telling my daughter once, "Listen, call them up and ask." "No, it's okay, Mom." No, it was like an accident.
Try, right?
Yeah, try. What do you have to lose?
Yeah, exactly. I think that would be the...
And that is the biggest thing, because we are all human beings. We all have compassionate hearts, and so I think that would be another thing I would tell my young self is just go after it. Ask. Never be afraid of rejection. Never be afraid of being told no. We're going to be told no 1,000 times. And also going after things, like even if you're not that good at it, but you're kind of intrigued or interested in it, go for it. So what? So what if
practice,
you're not good?
Practice makes anything better.
Yeah, for sure.
I would say that another thing that I was always interested since I was young was self-development, learning, and I wish I had some other subjects and more strength in some other subjects, in like the medical school I said. But another thing I was thinking is like what I'm like would tell my young self to continue doing, that I had for many years stopped, was dancing. And I actually not only I told to my actual self, like a few years ago, I actually because I grew up with samba, and there's no really samba here. There's in LA, so salsa is like like the Latino salsa that I like. But I couldn't dance. I actually got private. I invested in private lessons and took the classes, and I'm you know, I need to practice more. But
Yeah.
that was something that for a while I didn't do it.
Yeah.
I wish throughout my marriage I would have done more fun things for myself because he was not doing and I was not doing it myself as well.
Yeah. I also think too, as when we're younger, something that is only learned through life experience is saying I love you, and saying thank you, and saying, you know, taking advantage of those moments with family and loved ones and showing affection. And I don't know why it is that younger people are more reserved with that, you know, if it's fear, again, going back to fear of rejection, or if it's just something that I don't have to, you know, my actions will speak for me. Like, you know, I don't have, I wish that I said it more to the people that are important in my life, especially like, you know, my father too, you know, because of the distance between us and, you know, all of that. I was very reserved with my affection or how I, you know, displayed my affection. And I think that also carried into early relationships, you know. My mom was very strict. I couldn't date till I was 16. And so it was like, you can't kiss me, you can't touch me, you know, this, everything was like off limits. But I think that that also transferred into verbally not being, allowing myself to be vulnerable. And I think that if I could go back in time, I would say, you know, so if somebody doesn't say I love you back, or it doesn't matter, and I'm talking platonic friendships, you know, but also intimacy too, you know. So speaking your mind, freely speaking and expressing yourself without fear of it not being reciprocated, I think it helps us evolve as human beings, because it can really make the difference, you know, in how it impacts somebody else.
Yes, I as you say this, I'm thinking about like the ability to just love people, let people be in love and express the love, not, but again, it goes back into the level of consciousness. Like I wouldn't have this consciousness like, you know, 20, 30 years ago.
Well, maybe if somebody had put a podcast out 20 or 30 years ago and it was two women conveying, you know, maybe they would have heard this message and things would have been different for them.
I think I want to touch on, as I was growing up, I have been doing a lot of self-development, so I practiced the like recognizing the guilt, recognizing the resentment. Like I think that I already tell my young self of today to let go the resentment, to let go, like the fastest the guilt goes away, the fastest the resentment and the upset goes away, the easiest is life, like the workability that we have today, because all that it is lives in the past, lives in our memories.
We become victims and prisoners to not, lacking the ability to forgive. I mean, we may not forget anything, but the sooner we can forgive a person who did wrong by us, the sooner that we can move on. And I think when we're young, we don't realize, you know, we're not to the state of maturity where we realize by holding on to that resentment, it kind of forms,
it hurts us more.
Oh yeah, we have to, it just is kind of like, I forget the word that I'm searching for, but it just kind of festers inside of us, you know? Yeah, that's a really good one. Let's touch on that a little bit more, because I think there are a lot of women, even our age, that still are not letting go of past pain, and it holds them a prisoner to, they're not able to evolve or move forward and love again.
I do, like, you know, I'm a spiritual, I grew up Christian, and I listen to a lot of Wayne Dyer, and I do have other things. And last year, there was a few things that was happening. I was using the Ho'oponopono prayer. Have you heard about that one?
No.
It's a repetition, like a mantra.
Okay.
A mantra where you do thank you, please forgive me, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you.
Yeah.
And you think about that person or you think about that situation and you keep repeating. It's like a mantra to really forget,
Right.
forgive,
Let it go.
let it go. Because if I'm thinking, let's say someone said something for me or hurt my feelings or did something that I allowed my feelings to be hurt.
Yeah.
That's the beginning of like taking responsibility. When someone says something, they said what they said and I receive it.
Yeah.
I was the one who heard and allowed that to hurt me, right?
Yeah.
So start from there, like when things are happening, there's disempowering me or like where can I be responsible? Where can I just take that communication as a communication? You know?
Yeah, and I also think too, and we're all guilty of this when we're younger. When relationships don't work out for us when we're younger, we tend to point the finger. You know, we didn't know the importance of taking self-responsibility. You know, where am I responsible for where this went wrong? And I think that now where I'm at today, had I known that, I probably would have had a lot more successful relationships because I would know to look inward and recognize my weaknesses or things that I needed to work on. So that is something too. Don't just dismiss it like, oh, it just didn't work out because this person is this way. And this is also just platonic friendships.
We can't really do much about other people. We can do a lot about us. Like
or how we respond.
How we respond,
to
right?
Rejection or problems, issues.
I lost my thought.
That's
Someone
okay.
save me.
No, that's okay. Well, I'm gonna backpedal a little bit. Maybe it'll come back to you. I know we're getting close to the end of this segment, but one thing. Now, I was a person of, you brought up faith. I too, like you, I'm a Christian. You know, was raised in faith in Catholicism, and I was, you know, we're cradle Catholics, so in the sense of like church was always part of our life, but I didn't have Christ centered in my life like I do now. And my God, everything seems to fall into place for me, even when I have so much fear. And we did an episode on like life after divorce, and you had asked me a question, and I didn't recall, you know, didn't think to answer it this way, but like, what was that one leap that you took? That's what question you asked me. And it was even coming back to Orange County. Like, you know, I didn't have any money. I had to start all over. By the grace of God, a really good friend of mine helped get me a loan, you know, enough to get me like by for like a year. And she knows who she is. I adore her. I love her. I mean, she's part of why I'm out here now. But it was right before COVID hit. So I just went back to school. I said, okay, I'm going to go out to Orange County. I'm going to open my holistic health business. And then COVID hit, shut everything down. And I'm like, what am I going to do? You know, but I had to take that leap, and that leap was a faith in God that, like, I don't know what's in store for me, but I know He has me. And so if I could go back to my younger self, like whatever my fears are, my faith will carry me through it. And even if it didn't work out in my favor, I know that He still has me. And I know that today, and that's why I'm not afraid to take risk or afraid to be vulnerable, because even if it doesn't work out, He's going to carry me through to the next chapter in life. So, and you feel this void, you know, when you're young, and you don't know what it is. You might turn to sex, alcohol, you know, all these different...
Anything to escape.
To escape. Sometimes that void is simply because you're missing your Christ or your God, you know. That's... So
the ground is the center.
It is the center of everything I do. So I couldn't do this episode without bringing that up. And thank you for bringing, you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would emphasize, like, the takeaway for me is, like, all the memories and the thoughts were in the past. I can learn from it.
Yeah.
I can see where I did something that didn't work, what I did something that worked, and then what I can bring it for today. And then let go, like holding the resentments for people, and having compassion to others, right? Having compassion to myself, like my life works so much better.
Yeah, and not be afraid.
It's not perfect. My life is not perfect, but it's great.
Yeah, I think the takeaway, don't be afraid. Remember that we are all in the same boat. We are all created, with the same kind of emotionals, with the same fear. Mm-hmm. So
it brought us to who we are today.
And don't be afraid to fail, right? Mm-hmm. Don't be afraid to fail. Try it. Ask questions. Don't think that there's ever a bad question. People need to feel needed. I think so. Lean on people, and like you said, let go of your pain. Because truly, for you to evolve to that next level, that higher self, you need to let go of the past and the pain, and don't let it hold you prisoner. Amen.
Yeah, and focus on the good things. Like put the focus on who you became is powerful.
Yeah.
Who you became is amazing.
Yeah.
Look at the mirror and say, look at the mirror and say, I am beautiful. I am powerful. I'm the most amazing human being that I could ever be.
Yeah. Affirmations are totally essential.
And that's it for today. So make sure you engage with us. Tell us your story. What did you like about what we share? What we didn't like about what we shared? Did you have some stories similar? Or did you have like a totally opposite story? We'll love to hear. Click to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.